Okay,
I'm leaning towards this.
there's a part B to this scenario. So everything is the same. But instead of Michael Todd, the other puller is Devon Larratt, who is in similar shape to when he beat Chafee 3-1. Can Devon beat Levan in a best-of-5 right-handed super match?
You want to go? You take this.
Sure. For all the reasons you just stated, I think he wins easier. I think that lately Michael has been a little bit better at manipulating his opponent's hand than Devon has. I don't think you'll see what happened to Chafee, where even when he's gaining ground, his wrist is giving out. It's a tough one. I think that I honestly think that Levan is so strong right now that it could look a lot like Saplenka versus Larratt left-handed.
Well, uglier. Michael Todd has a much better king move than Devon. His king move is more pronation heavy. Devon's king move is more dig deep and get lower off your bone, off the lock, and just get lower and lower and straighten the arm and get lower. Michael's is really hinged on pronation, which means, and he has a thicker wrist, which means Levan will get a nice good control over Devon's hand, much like Dave did. But the problem is Levan has a lot more, seems to have more side pressure and more flexion, or maybe more hand control. And if there would be a dangerous ramification or an injury, this matchup has the potential to give one man, it's a whole lot of ugly on this one.
Yeah, and it's a crystal ball type question. So I mean, it's
yeah. I mean, holding off Dave Chafee and Dave Chafee deciding to go low, compared to a guy who has an incredibly hand that can contain really well and has a lot of side pressure and will not go low, means that Devon could bleed him, much like Michael Todd could bleed him, or he could break his arm, or he just, as he's laying on that pivot or that lock, the whole, his whole body will just anchor and get pinned type thing. Yeah, Michael Todd has a better king, and if I'm predicting Levan over Michael Todd, I'm definitely predicting Levan over Devon.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Okay, next question. Another Sean question. Theoretically, there's an upcoming right-handed super match for $1 million to the winner. Nothing to the loser. Best of 5 using wall rules, tables, pads. The same reffing that occurred for Dave Chafee and Devon, so you got Bart up there. The competitors are Michael Todd and John Brzenk. If Brzenk has 1 year to train the way he wants and gain as much weight as he wants, can he beat Michael Todd and his King's move?
Not even a question. An absolute 100% yes for me. Motivation has always been the key, especially later in his years. Money's been the motivating factor. Brute strength isn't the recipe to beat the King's move. It's John showed how to do it. John can find out a way to beat anyone 10, 15, 20 years ago and now. And $1 million, Mike would come in at 400 pounds with a big gut. John would come in and beat him 3-0.
John will come in at 230.
Yeah.
Much like he did at we saw it at UAL 8, I believe it was, when they had the car on the line.
Yeah.
And man, John came in there and just killed everybody. Yeah. He had ample time to train, ample time to prepare. He knew exactly where everyone was going. And this is one we won't disagree on. I think John comes in and he wins. And when John comes in ready, he wins. It's just what he does. He came in, he beat Devon. He took the hammer from Devon. He came in, he beat Michael Todd at a big event. He has the ability to contain guys like Dave Chafee when he's just a little bit heavier, a little bit stronger and well prepared. I mean, John with no training can go over to Moldova and hang in there with some of the top guys. Like it's
John.
insane.
John could even make a comeback post 55. Like he could. Yeah, there's a reason he'll go down as the greatest. And what's interesting is if all we had was a window of his last 5 years, you can argue he's the greatest. He's just even past his prime, he's shown absolute greatness. Without circus parlor tricks or running or cheating, he does it in a way that's very honorable traditionally. So the nod will always go against John. I'll always go with John with stuff like that, only because he's proven with the right motivation, he's unbeatable. Yeah.
And it says the same question. Instead, they have best of 5 using PAL rules, tables, pads, and strict refereeing. Does your answer change? And I think it's pretty clearly a no. The answer does not change.
No.
It actually bothers me that people talk about John like he wasn't the greatest of all time, that he had lesser competition. I think those are like he's beaten the champions from a few different eras now, and it's an unfair statement to say that John is not the best. And that was said of him a couple of times over the last couple of decades, and he came in and proved that he's still the man, and he still has the ability to be the man.
Just a quick segue. Last night I was sitting on stage and I was talking to Joe Fitzsimmons. And Joe Fitzsimmons, I asked him, I said, Joe, how long have you been arm wrestling? And he says, started in 1975. I was born in 1974. I'm 44. Give you an idea how long he's been pulling. And I said to him, what was the best or the most competitive era in arm wrestling history, in your opinion? And he says, late 70s. He said, Al Turner, George Givens, stuff like that. And he told me stories of Al Turner and what he did in Givens and who they beat and stuff like that. And I said, better than John? He says, no. He says, and he's pulled John. He's seen John. He says, John was even at a 19-year-old, John was special. And John, what he did, no one comes close to John. But every era prior to John had its greatest at that time, much like any sport. But I think if you ask anyone who's saw John early, middle, late in his career, would all agree that he's definitely the greatest of all time. It's hard to argue against that. But it was interesting to talk to a guy who pulled him many times and has a window into some of the arm wrestlers in the early 80s and 70s, Cleve Dean, all that stuff, and still say John, without question, is the greatest arm wrestler to ever live. That was an interesting conversation.
Now, this is the next question that's kind of in the same vein, but it's got the pound for pound attached to it. So, in your opinion, who is the best pound for pound arm wrestler of all time? And it gives 5 choices here. So it's
not even close, but go ahead.
Engin Terzi, there's Babayev, there's Zoloev, there's Oleg Zok, and then there's F, which is other. You could make a case, if you're considering the pound for pound, that Engin could be potentially up there with John, but I mean, for the length of career, the what he has done consistently throughout it, and the fact that he usually sits around 200 pounds, I think that the nod goes to John still.
John's the best. The number 2 best arm wrestler to ever live, and there's not a big gap between the two, is Engin.
Yeah.
Engin, if Engin was born at 195, 190, we'd be talking as Engin in that vein. The problem is John impressed us by beating giants at a not 200-pounder. Over the top helped John. His prolificness transcended more time, more geography, more eyes. But Engin, not the greatest arm wrestler of all time, not the greatest, but he's the best arm wrestler I've ever seen. He's the best, not the greatest. To be great, you can't just have the ability, you have to do it over a period of time to be considered the greatest. Michael Jordan, this and that. The best arm wrestler to ever put his elbow on the pad and arm wrestle is Engin Terzi. Being from Turkey, limited resources, being 130-pounder, working his way up. How many weight classes has he won? How many weight classes has he dominated? So the best arm wrestler to ever live, the smartest arm wrestler to ever live.
So you're saying that if you take a snippet of time, he is so dominant that he's the guy.
Now, Rustam's an interesting question too, because I think over the period of the last 5 years, you can say he's pound for pound. The problem is, I believe Engen did a lot of his damage, in his prime, in an era where drugging wasn't so rampant. Now Rustam's a beast. I just don't know. I think the purity of what Engen did at the era in which he did it solidifies him as the best arm wrestler I've ever seen. Pound for pound or not pound for pound. I just think he didn't have the sample size or the geography, or he just didn't have the impact that John had. John's impact on the sport kind of influences how we think about him, and as it should. But Engen and I, he's blocked me for years. Him and I, he speaks his mind, I speak my mind. We in 2006 in Manchester, him and I kind of got into it face to face, verbally. But I told him what I thought, and he told me what he thought. But that guy's the best arm wrestler I've ever seen. He's something.
Yeah. Okay, we got one more activity we got to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh man, it's the tier system again.
Yeah.
The same questions. So I'm going to name these names. Let's blast through them because the final question is a little tricky and it's for both of us. Marlon Hicks.
When? Now? 2008?
Yep. Now.
Fuck. Marlon's a 3. It's hard because he mostly pulls masters. He's in and out. In his prime, when he was traveling down south and pulling some of the bigger U.S. tournaments, he was a 4. Looks like we've had this conversation about Anthony. It's hard to gauge a guy when he's in the twilight of his career and not as hungry or not traveling as much, not seeking out higher competition. So right now he's a 3. And Marlon's a 3. I hate doing it with guys that are declining because it seems like you're discrediting them. The problem is the tier system works in the now. It works in the now. It doesn't work on, you can argue what the guy could do or what he's done, but it essentially works in the now. What have you done recently? So he's a 3.
Yeah. Now, in fairness, I said right now, but we're not going to rank the next guy right now because right now that would not be fair. And I'm talking about Vern Martel.
Oh, fuck, man. Like, I'm almost being set up here to Vern. When I came into the sport, Vern was the man. Vern was absolutely the man. No one was more respected in Canada. In North America. The praise that he was being given by Simon Barry Ochoa and some of the top at the time, Craig Toulier was a heavy lightweight. Much like Anthony, no negative things to say about this guy. Kicked the living shit out of me. Mike Gould's 2006 just lit me right up. I couldn't even, couldn't even stop his hit. How he did it with the shortcomings that he had was amazing. The fact that he still comes into tournaments right now or shows up shows how much he's loved. But in his prime, he was a fucking 4, even maybe arguably a 5 sometimes. In Canada, he was a 5. He was an absolute 5. North America with the best, he was a 4. But now, I don't know. When was the last time he pulled? It's been 3 years. I know he's fighting he had a battle with cancer. I don't know how he's doing, but I did
talk to Vern a little bit at the national championships, and he's actually he was contemplating arm wrestling.
I love it.
So I think Vern, yeah, I mean, 4 for sure, yeah. And could be there again if he wants to be, like when he's done his fight with all the other stuff.
There's this notion that if you make a comeback or you're not trained, or people say, well, I'm not going to tournament, I'm not trained, or I don't know how. There's a beauty also just fucking arm wrestling. Even if maybe you struggle with the weakest guy in the class, it's just a fucking people think glory comes with, you know, being undefeated and hoisting the trophy, but fuck, man, there's.
You know, there was a mixed martial arts fighter, and this was a story that I heard on Chael Sonnen's podcast. And he was looking for somebody for his grappling event and to compete against, I think it was Fabiano Schurner, which is one of the top jiu-jitsu guys ever. And Matt Mitrione stepped up because they had a last-minute cancellation. He's not known as a grappler. Well, Mitrione said that one of the statements he made was, "I don't believe in win at all costs. I believe in compete at all costs."
Fucking, I love it.
Yeah.
The best quote, well, before I forget when we're talking about quotes, the best quote I've heard in many, many, many years was based on the video where Devon and Mike Todd both say, whatever it takes to win. And you know you're wrong, or I believe you know you're wrong when Todd Hutchins disagrees with you. And Todd Hutchins was, "I don't strive for victory, I strive for excellence." Like,
that's amazing. Yeah.
I fucking love that. Like, I read that and I'm like, man, like, fuck. right. Like really, like, the win at all costs thing, I don't like. If I was raising a child, be passionate, compete at all costs, yes. Follow through, commit, all that stuff. But yeah, like, compete at all costs. Get in there. Sometimes battling and competing is about dealing with your inner conflict, fear, whatever it might be. And sometimes just competing or stepping up is a victory in itself. The victory, winning at all costs, is a very narrow-minded, ignorant statement. It's toxic and dangerous philosophy. And so, love it. And I think if Vern came back, I think it'd be awesome for his soul. I think it'd be great for everyone around him. And who gives a fucking loses, wins? Who gives a fuck? That would be a special moment, I think.
Well, we got there's a bunch of names. So what do we, let's keep it to 5. Let's see, we'll do 5 each week.
Sure. Yeah,
I think that's fair. I like this next one a lot. And Randy Byers.
Textbook 4.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's an easy one. He's a textbook 4. Proven it, can see it, and he's proven it. That's the easiest. That's a very easy one. Textbook.
Even though he might not be the most active guy.
No.
Man, he is an animal. Like he's proven
to be a 4. He's not 55, talking about what he did in 1999. So he's still in his prime. He's relatively young. Recent success, and the evidence is that he's a 4. So it's easy. Yeah. Easy.
Now, I gotta, just for clarification on the tier system, a 5 would be hard to maintain, to get to and maintain, right? Like it would be.
5 is the most rarest. Yeah, 5 is the rarest.
Yeah, it's okay.
5 is when you're talking about the greatest of all time. 5 is the greatest, or in our right now, or 5 is a very, very special individual. 5 is rare.
And then they throw let's throw Dave Chafee in here.
Dave. That's a good one.
You want me to throw my 2 cents in here first?
Please. Yes.
I think Dave is a 5 until he runs into one particular style that is his kryptonite. So given that, I think that bumps him down to a 4. Now, I understand that I don't have a full understanding of the whole tier system, but if he's a 4, he's a high 4, and I still think he's there. And that's based on his biggest tool, which is brute strength.
Yeah, that's well said. He's a very, 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 very high 4, very high 4, and what keeps him from a 5 is, like you said, if in the scenario a super heavyweight class in the top, or some of the top 15 guys show up, a 5 has to be a guy that everyone says fuck.
Even and normally people would say that when Dave walks in the room.
And if we had this conversation 2 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, 5. Recently, he's lost his last 2 matches, albeit with an asterisk beside it. In my opinion, doesn't tarnish his ability or his reputation. because don't forget my tier system goes off rigid rules and tournament format. But high fours. But the potential for a 5 is easily, like, he's one step away. I think he's just got some stuff to polish off, but he's a high 4. He's right. He's one of those, you can make arguments both ways, but I agree 100% with your assessment. I agree with that. It's strong.
So the fifth people, there's actually 2 more, because Justin Pagdato, a guy that I train with, he came to practice last week. He said, I would like you and Chris to rank yourselves and each other.
Yeah. You're easy. You're textbook 4. And it's different because you're left. You can arguably put your 2 arms in different. Well, you're both right and left are 4s. Yeah. In Canada, you're a fucking 5. Yeah. North America, 4. Yeah. I'd give you a 4. Yeah, you're a 4. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. I would have done the same kind of thing with myself. I would have said probably 4 left.
Yeah.
And then I would have right arm. You could make an argument that it's down to 3. You could say that. I wouldn't have been upset.
It can be argued both ways.
If you'd have said that. And I would almost think that it's the same in reverse. Like, if I was to rank you, the left arm would be 4 and the right arm would be almost exactly where I'd put myself with the right arm.
Yeah. Are we supposed to rank ourselves as well?
Yeah.
Did he say that? Yeah. My left's a 3. My right might be a 2 now. My right.
Really?
Yeah. Depends. I had a really good night last night, only because I haven't done anything in 2 months, and all my I was just completely healed. And loose and stuff, and I just really did well. The right did better than the left, actually. Lost my overall matchup left, won my overalls matchup right. It depends, but I don't know if my left's a 4 anymore. Well, 165, 154, 165. My left is a 4. Yeah. My right might be a 2, but my left is probably still a 4.
Yeah. And you know what, man? That's all we got for today.
It's good enough. Next week, could potentially, if upon confirmation, could be massive. So I await that confirmation.
Well, I have confirmation of the date that we're going to report.
Awesome.
Now, making it happen, and I'm not going to make an announcement until I have the video footage saved on my computer. So it's going to be big, I think. But yeah. What else you got? Anything before we close the show?
No, I think that's about it. Although if this guest does come on, which he most likely will, you might have to remove the ban on the King's Move topic, because I think he'll have some stuff to say.
It will be this is a 1 episode thing.
Yeah, exception.
He can talk about if he comes on, he can talk about whatever he wants to talk about. I just thought, you know what, let's change it up a little bit, because
it's all good.
It's going to be It's been dominating everyone's channels lately, and
beating the same drum. You can only say the same thing so many times, and frankly, the more you talk about it, the more power you give it sometimes. So it's just let it go. Yeah, indeed.
All right, brother. Well, we'll see.
All right, man.
I'll see you in a week.
Sounds good. We'll talk soon.
And see everyone else in a week. Don't forget to hit subscribe.
Yeah. Take it easy, buddy.